Close your eyes for a second. No rings, no paperwork, no priest, no witnesses. You're standing in a river valley in East Africa, 100,000 years ago. A man and a woman sit near the same fire every night. They share meat. They raise a child together. Nobody wrote anything down. Nobody said any vows. And yet, somehow, everyone around them understood exactly what that meant. That's the strange truth we're about to get into. Marriage feels like a modern invention, something with paperwork and legal weight. But the real question isn't when humans started signing documents. The real question is when humans first decided that a pair bond deserved to be recognized by everyone else. And the answer is older, stranger, and far more practical than you think. Here's where most people get it wrong immediately. They picture a caveman dragging a woman by the hair, and they assume that's what ancient marriage looked like. That image isn't science. It's a 19th century cartoon that stuck. The actual evidence tells a completely different story, one built on cooperation, not conquest. Let's start with biology, because biology got there first. Anthropologists studying pair bonding point to something called the provisioning hypothesis. Early hominin mothers had a problem. Human babies are born helpless, and they stay helpless for years, far longer than any other primate. A mother carrying and nursing a dependent infant cannot also hunt, forage over long distances, and defend herself at the same time. She needed consistent help from one specific person she could count on, every single day. That's the seed of marriage, not romance, logistics. A male who stuck around, brought food, and defended the offspring, and in return got something too, a reliable mate, and a better shot at his genes surviving. Researchers estimate this kind of pair bonding pattern may stretch back over 1 million years, tied to changes in brain size. Bigger brains meant longer childhoods. Longer childhoods meant mothers needed backup. But here's the thing people forget. A private arrangement between two people isn't the same as marriage. Plenty of animals pair up. Wolves do it. Some birds mate for life. What makes marriage human isn't the bond itself. It's the fact that other people know about it, respect it, and enforce it. That's the missing ingredient, and it required something animals don't have. Language, social memory, the ability to gossip. Once early humans developed complex language, somewhere between 100,000 and 200,000 years ago, something changed. A pair bond stopped being a private fact between two people and became public information. The whole group knew who belonged with whom. And once a group knows something, it starts to enforce it. Anthropologists call this the difference between mating and marriage. Mating is biological. Marriage is social. So when's the first hard evidence? This is where it gets frustrating, because relationships don't fossilize. You can't dig up a wedding. What archaeologists find instead are burials. And burials tell you almost everything. At a site called Sunghir in Russia, dated to roughly 34,000 years ago, archaeologists uncovered a grave holding 2 children, buried head to head, covered in thousands of ivory beads that would have taken over 10,000 hours to make. Nearby, an adult male was buried with similar extraordinary care. This wasn't random. This was a community investing enormous resources into specific relationships, specific family units, in death. If you honor a bond that intensely when someone dies, you were almost certainly honoring it while they were alive. Go back even further, and you find something even more revealing. At sites in the Middle East and Europe dated between 100,000 and 120,000 years ago, archaeologists have found double burials, adults placed together deliberately, arranged with what looks unmistakably like intention. not thrown into a pit. Positioned. Some researchers argue this is the earliest physical trace we have of recognized partnership. A community saying, these two belong to each other, and we will treat them that way even now. Then there's a detail almost nobody talks about. The ring finger. Long before diamonds, long before Christianity had anything to do with weddings, ancient Egyptians believed a vein ran directly from the fourth finger of the left hand straight to the heart. They called it the vena amoris, the vein of love. Egyptian couples exchanged rings made of braided reeds as early as 4,800 years ago. The Romans later borrowed the tradition and turned it into iron, then gold. Every wedding ring on every hand today is an echo of an Egyptian belief about anatomy that turned out to be scientifically wrong. And nobody cares, because the meaning outlived the mistake. Now here's where the story gets genuinely strange. Marriage in the ancient world had almost nothing to do with love. That idea that you marry the person you're emotionally obsessed with is startlingly recent in human history. For most of the last 10,000 years, marriage was primarily an economic and political transaction. It merged families. It transferred land, animals, and alliances. It decided who inherited what, and who owed loyalty to whom. In ancient Mesopotamia, marriage contracts were written on clay tablets, spelling out property, dowries, and obligations with the precision of a business deal. Because that's essentially what marriage was. A contract, centuries before it was ever a feeling. Love wasn't irrelevant, but it wasn't the point. It was considered a fortunate bonus if it showed up, not a requirement. Some historians argue romantic love didn't become the dominant Western reason to marry until roughly the 18th century. Which means, for well over 90% of the time marriage has existed as an institution, love was optional. Function was mandatory. And that reframes everything. Marriage wasn't invented because early humans fell in love and wanted to celebrate it. It was invented because a species with helpless infants, long childhoods, and complex social groups needed a way to guarantee cooperation, allocate resources, and reduce violent competition over mates. Marriage isn't romantic in its origins. It's structural, one of the oldest pieces of social technology our species ever built. Right up there with fire and language, because in a very real sense, it depended on both. And once that structure existed, it kept getting put to heavier work. Older anthropological surveys of documented societies suggest a majority historically permitted some form of polygamy, usually one man with multiple wives, which means the modern assumption that marriage always meant exactly two people is on shakier ground than it feels. Then, once humans settled down and started farming, marriage inherited an even bigger job, deciding who owns the field when the father dies, whose bloodline holds the land. What stayed constant through every version of this wasn't the number of people involved or the stakes attached. It was the public recognition, the community-wide understanding of who was bonded to whom, and what everyone else owed them because of it. So when did ancient humans invent marriage? If you want the private biological pair bond, you're looking at possibly over 1 million years of hominin history. If you want the public, socially recognized version, the one with witnesses, expectations, and consequences, you're looking at somewhere between 1 and 200,000 years ago. Right around when language got sophisticated enough to make a promise means something beyond the two people making it. And if you want the paperwork, the rings, the contracts, the parts that still echo in weddings today, that's a mere few thousand years old, a recent layer on top of something ancient. The next time you see two rings exchanged at an altar, you're not watching a modern custom. You're watching the tail end of a survival strategy older than agriculture, older than cities, older than almost anything else humans have built. Two people, publicly agreeing to stay, because 100,000 years ago, staying was the difference between a child who lived and a child who didn't. The vows changed. The reasoning underneath them never really did. And that's what makes this one different from most ancient history stories. It's not really about the past. It's still happening at every wedding you've ever been to. If this changed how you look at something you thought you already understood, that's exactly what this channel is for. Subscribe, because there's a lot more of human nature hiding in plain sight like this.